All right, guys. So I thought I would share with you guys how I work through a prompt um, from the AP exam. So I have the 2010 free response questions open right now. Um, I picked this one from the last video we were at. So I'm just going to scroll through and show you what I noticed, and then I'll go into like picking apart a prompt. So what you're going to notice when you open these is it starts off with being really annoying with your computer like this. No, it starts with synthesis is question one typically. If you go back really far on the test, it will have some different types of prompts because it's changed over the years. So be careful when you scroll back too far that you don't get ones that are too old, and then you'll be confused because you'll be like, where's the argument prompt at? I don't see it here under question 3. Mrs. Thomas is a liar. No, it's just you went back really far with the prompts. Okay, so this first one is synthesis. It gives you like a bunch of directions here, and it tells you what the assignment is. It's really an argument, and you're using multiple sources here. So you're gonna see right over here, these sources, okay? Source A, B, C, D, E, and F. Those are what you're going to use. You have to use at least 3 of them, and you'll see there are different lengths and different types of sources. I mean, look how short this one is. I mean, they shouldn't take you too long to work through. They'll also have visual ones, so that's why last semester we went over how to pick apart visual images to get meaning out of them. So here's an example of that. So that's the end of synthesis if you're just curious. The next one is rhetorical analysis. This is the Benjamin Banneker prompt that we've used before for practice in AP. We use this because of the time period it's written in 1791. So it's a bit of a challenge for kids to read it just because the vocabulary and the way things are worded, but it's a really strong piece of writing. The repetition of the word sir throughout here is great. Hopefully we'll come back to this one. I'll be able to talk about it. So we're going to question 3 actually on the 2010 prompts, which is an interesting prompt. So I'm going to switch to tablet mode and hope that this still works. And I'm going to show you how I'd actually read and annotate this prompt. So I'm going into tablet mode. You may or may not see my face. Too bad. So what I see here on question 3 is it says, in his 2004 book, Status Anxiety, Alain de Botton argues that the chief aim of humorists is not merely to entertain, but to convey with impunity messages that might be dangerous or impossible to state directly. Because society allows humorists to say things that other people cannot or will not say, de Botton sees humorists as serving a vital function in society. Okay, topic is humorists. Think about the implications of de Botton's view of the role of humorists, cartoonists, stand-up comics, satirical writers, hosts of television programs, etc. Okay, I've seen some cartoonists. I know, like, one of my favorites is, I can't remember his name, Gary something, the Far Side, guy that does the Far Side. I also like Calvin Hobbes. Okay. Stand-up comics. I know you guys probably watch way more of these than I do, but I really love Jim Gaffigan because he's one I can actually watch with my family. But maybe like George Carlin, his stuff is always very edgy. Maybe like Chris Rock. And most comics are really edgy. It's what they do. Satirical writers. Oh my gosh, we just read a satirical piece. Who was it? Oh, remember Jonathan Swift? Probably one of the most famous satirical pieces was A Modest Proposal, which I had you guys read for class. Okay, so remember the eating babies, if you're kind of clueless on that. So that's an interesting one. Okay, then write an essay. Oh, and host of television programs. So I'm thinking like Jimmy Fallon. I'm thinking Ellen. Okay, etc. I like Conan as well. Then write an essay that defends, challenges, or qualifies his claim about the role of vital role of humorists. Use specific appropriate evidence. They're always going to say that. Here's one thing I immediately thought of when I read this prompt, right here. Boom. I thought about Shakespeare. And I thought about his use of the fools. Remember we talked about that with The Great Gatsby? I mentioned the idea of the fool who can say anything in front of the king and even critique the king and get away with it. So I'm thinking court jesters. Those of you who've been in drama, you probably know these are often the porter is the character in a Shakespeare play. Now, some of you might be like, Mrs. Thomas, I wouldn't have known that off the top of my head. Well, this is where being well-read helps you out. The more you know, the more you have to draw from. So I have that knowledge to think about because I know that these guys, these characters in these plays, we have them still today. Our comedians, our humorists are able to say what no one else can say. I can't say some of the stuff they say as a teacher. I have to have a filter on when I'm teaching, right? But they can say things of what they're really thinking, what they really want to criticize about our world, about politics and everything. So that's really what this is getting at. And so I'm like, okay, do they serve that important role? So I'm just going to scroll to give myself more room. So I've already started brainstorming here. So here's the thing you got to understand. I don't think AP is using these anymore. I'll double check it. But it's still important practice is to know that you can defend, which means you're really agreeing. You can challenge, which means you disagree on some level. Or you can qualify, which means you're in between. This might sound familiar because we did talk about it this last fall, this kind of review. So remember, qualify, you're saying, well, here's the line that I draw between the two in these circumstances where I agree and here's where I disagree. My initial reaction to this prompt is that I agree. I think the place where I disagree, maybe a concession I would make, a concession is where you say, hey, I kind of agree with you on this point, agree with the opposition. So one concession I would make is like bathroom humor. I don't really think, I mean, it's funny and everything, but I don't know that it has much vital function of a society, okay? Someone could definitely argue against that with me, and that's fine. They might say, oh, well, those types of jokes, though, actually relieve tension, which I'll get to in a little bit with my thoughts. I'm already going there with my thoughts, because guess what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about all these like coronavirus jokes and parodies. And some people say that's inappropriate, that's wrong, but you know what? Human beings have been making inappropriate jokes like that for a long time. You ever heard the little rhyme, ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down? That was all about the plague. You had so many people dying, and yet we have a children's song about it. So, I mean, this is nothing new. Humans have done this for a long time. So to me, is this a very human thing to do? Oops, I don't know why it's suddenly erasing. Probably because I was clicking something. All right, so I've already thought through some stuff, and guess what? I have a lot of places I could go, but I'm not done yet because I got to think of what do I want my body paragraphs to really be about? What do I think is this actual vital function of society? Well, one thing I think about is like political commentary. And, you know, that these humorists can actually say what nobody else feels like they can say. They can say what's unpopular. They can push back against authority and the majority. I also think about how they can sit there and comment on human nature or our behaviors. And they can also comment on our issues with society. And really criticize those things. So I'm already thinking about that because in my head, I'm thinking about some people. I think about like Ellen DeGeneres with her show. Can't even write. Jimmy Fallon also does this a lot too. They often weave them in there. If you think of Stephen Colbert, you know, he also does a lot of that. And I think, I mean, Colbert especially does a lot of political commentary. Ellen does a little bit here. So already just with like late night TV hosts who have backgrounds in comedy and stand-up comedy, I've already found some examples. But remember, it also gave me some ideas up here where it brought up cartoonists, stand-up comics. So I need to go to my wheelhouse of what speaks the most to me. What can I sound the most intelligent about with examples? I think I'm going to save Swift for my examples. So I think I'm going to use him on my political, whoops, I don't know what I did there. Mrs. Thomas just moved things. So I think I'm going to use Swift right here with my political commentary example. Everything moved. It's okay, we'll deal with it. Jim Gaffigan, he does a lot of things about human nature and behaviors. Oh my gosh, my computer hates me today. Cancel. So I think he would be a good one to have there. I think these ones I have are also pretty strong. The other thing is for my introduction, I already have the basics of an introduction. Here's what I would do. This idea about Shakespeare is really solid. I would use this as my hook. And then after that, I would go into my background on the issue, this idea of the role that humorists play and have played even since back into Shakespeare's time. Then I would probably go into my concession for a little bit and then talk about my viewpoint of agreeing that they serve a vital role. You can do the same old thing like you've learned with the 5-paragraph essay where you say, oh, you know, they help play a vital role in critiquing our political, making political comments and critiques. They help us understand the ugly side and beautiful side of human nature, and they help us question our problems in society. You know, I could do that in my thesis. It's a kind of boring and predictable. So here's a couple ways you can frame a whole argument. You can start with your intro, with your thesis, and then you build your argument from there with like your reasons, right? And then you have a conclusion. And you don't have to have 3 paragraphs. You can have 4 or 5, whatever. In this paper, you could have 2, because remember, it's a limited time. You just want them to be really strong writing. Don't worry so much about how many you have of whatever. Worry about ideas. Ideas are king. If you don't have good ideas, it doesn't matter how many you have if the rest is garbage, okay? Another way you can do it is do an intro to the idea, but don't let us know where you're, don't let us know where you stand on the issue. So start off with an intro to the topic and the background, and then build your arguments. So you're really kind of doing like stepping stones up to your thesis. You're leading us to that by the end. And that's really where we end your paper. So we start off with our intro, background, get us interested in it. And then start building a logical progression of your ideas. Kind of like how I brainstormed up above with my thought process. That was a logical construction I was doing. It's just how my thoughts were going. And it's all working toward me bringing you to agree with me on the thesis. So I could start with a concession here. Then I could go into, my viewpoint with examples. And maybe I build in some counterclaims. But if you do counterclaims, which you probably should do, right? You need to refute them. You can't just leave them hanging, otherwise it makes you weak. And you don't want that. No, no. All right, so that's it. That is how I would brainstorm an argument prompt. Really picking it apart. I love that that moved so that now it's all weird, but that's all right. So join me next time. I think next time I'm going to try to actually write this essay. So if you're watching this, maybe you in the meantime should try to go write your own version of it. And next time you can compare it to what I come up with and see how it goes. We might also even just look at some student examples from the actual AP website and pick those apart and see how they handled introductions and how they handled the body paragraphs and the conclusions, what they did well and what they needed some work on. So see you next time. Bye.